ladies and gentlemen, the CLC lecture is about to begin. In the meantime, please switch your mobile devices to silent mode. Thank you. Distinguished guests and fellow colleagues, welcome to today's CLC lecture series on Seoul's achievements and challenges beyond development dependent city. My name is Dion and I'm from the Center for Livable Cities. The Center for Livable Cities was jointly established by the Ministry of National Development and the Ministry of Environment and Water Resources with the aim to distill, create and share knowledge on livable and sustainable cities. The CLC lecture series is one of the platforms through which urban thought leaders and international experts share best practices and exchange ideas and experiences. In today's session, we are honored to have with us Dr. Kim, President of Seoul Institute, a main think tank established and sponsored by Seoul Metropolitan Government. Having served as chairman of the Seoul Policy Advisory Committee, Vice Minister of Environment, and Secretary to the President for Social Policy, National Economy, and Social Inclusion. His research interests are Seoul's urban issues in housing, regeneration, poverty, and social inclusion. Today, President Kim will discuss his concerns and ideas for the future of successful, global, and yet development-dependent city of Seoul. These are relevant to many successful metropolitan cities in East Asia facing issues such as the coming of the aging society and low economic growth era. We will begin with a presentation by Dr. Kim, followed by a question and answer session. The discussion will be moderated by Dr. Cho, who is Assistant Professor, Department of Architecture, School of Design and Environment, National University of Singapore. Without further ado, we would now like to welcome Dr. Kim on stage, please.
Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, I'm very happy to be here, and also I'm very privileged be invited here, but I'm a bit nervous to friends. Well, when I was invited by CLC, actually I was a bit hesitant to accept that or not. Because first of all, my English isn't perfect, as we know well. And this would be the longest presentation in English ever in my life. But more importantly, actually, I was wondering why Singaporeans are interested in Seoul. Because your city already became a successful city and something exemplary to the other cities. And actually, in this book, I'm sure you all know this book. They are full of success stories, actually. But, Seoul is far from success. So, I was hesitant what to tell you about. But I determined to go ahead just to tell you the failure story of Seoul. You know, Seoul experienced quite rapid changes, of course. But the process of the development was full of trial and errors. And I think the competitiveness of Seoul is based on this trial and errors. So, if there's any implication to you from my presentation, then it would be welcome. Well, let me start with a question. What kind of images do you have on Seoul? How about these? The skyline, Hallyu, K-pop, and K-movie, and Cheonggyecheon? Well, these are all our government wants to promote. And how about these? The North Korea and the unstable political situation or the protesting. Well, actually we have these two extreme sets of images. As far as urban policy, such as housing, transportation, environment, industry, and culture, we also have that kind of extreme experience. For example, ultra-rapid urbanization, extreme housing shortage, and infrastructure deficit. This is the story I want to tell you about. And this is the outline of my presentation. It will take about 15 minutes, and then let's have a discussion. Well, here is a brief history of Seoul. Seoul has been the capital of Korea since the Joseon Dynasty, which started in 14th century. At that time, it was called Hanyang. But in 1910, Japan invaded and colonized the Korean peninsula until 1945. And just 5 years later, Korea went through another devastating tragedy, the Korean War, dividing our land into north and south. The social turmoil continued even after that, and the industrialization of South Korea had to wait until the early 1960s. So it was the center of all these events and history. As you can see in this graph, per capita income was just less than $100 in 1960. Korea was one of the poorest countries in the world. But from 1960, Korea grew steadily and rapidly. Now, Korea's per capita income is about $30,000. And with respect to purchasing power, Korea came right up to Japan. Of course, it's far behind Singapore. There was also a dramatic upward shift in population growth. Seoul only had a population of 2.5 million in 1960. But the population increased by 300,000 per year for 30 years. But by 1990, I think the Seoul reached a certain limit of the population. So it became too crowded, and they started to move out to the metropolitan region surrounding Seoul. So the population is stagnating or slowly decreasing. Now, 25 million people living in the metropolitan area, and this number is half of the whole population. As a result, 10 million residents and an additional 2 million commuters are living in an area of smaller than Singapore. As far as I know, this is one of the fastest growing and most dense cities in the world. There were no textbooks that could teach us how to manage such a rapidly expanding city. Through a series of trials and errors, Seoul needed to carve its own path. Here are the changes of Seoul city limits. The city limits expanded until 1964, but since then, the area has remained as it is at 605 square kilometers. And the road networks also extended and became denser. Cars, total road lengths, and the subways also increased. And the tap water, parks, and the libraries as well. In this slide, I show you the city space changing. As I already mentioned, 50 years ago, the population of Seoul was just 2.5 million, mostly living on the area formed in the former dynasty and colonial eras. But since 1960, the population increased dramatically. 300,000 people every year increased. With this increase and rapid economic growth, Seoul itself had to experience dramatic changes. It could be said there have been 3 big stages in the past 5 decades. The first round was the inner expansion of Seoul. The old Seoul expanded itself with large amounts of squat settlements, which are called Hanjacheon. And the government also developed modern housing estates in the southern part of Seoul. As you can see here, all available lands in Seoul was covered with a built environment. In practice, no more vacant land left. So, since the 1980s, the second round began. I mean, the densification stage. The first, the government started to redevelop these squat homes with high-rise apartment first. And then, small detached housing in the older residential areas was demolished and became denser by building multi-family housing within one building. After that, the low-rise apartment reconstructed to modern high-rises. So in this second round, all of Seoul, it has been high-rise and densified. Finally, the remaining old areas or remaining low-rise areas started to be redeveloped on the name of New Town project in the early 2000s. The original plan was to redevelop around 10% of all houses into high-rise apartments in just 4 years. But soon after these audacious projects started, we encountered the financial crisis. So as of now, just 30% of the plan is ongoing. As you can see in this slide, Seoul went through 3 stages of major changes with a repeated internal expansion and densification and redevelopment. As a result, it is no joke when I say Seoul is always under construction. With these extreme changes, Seoul overcame the devastation of the Korean War and became one of the most successful cities in the world. First of all, Seoul became globally competitive. The graph shows the progress of Seoul's competitiveness index. Of course, it is one grade behind Singapore. And here are other figures the Seoul government want to show off. Secondly, Seoul also becomes the economical command post of Korea. It is the location of more than 70% of major companies' headquarters. Third, Seoul became the center of democratization and new values. One of the largest demonstrations which enabled Korea to become a more democratic society happened in Seoul in 1987. Today, people gather at Gwanghwamun or Seoul City Hall to protest and show their opinions on public matters. Can you count how many people gathered here? More than 200,000 without any permission. Well, then, what were the factors which drove this success? Three factors are commonly pointed out. First of all, high quality manpower and information are concentrated in the capital area, particularly in Seoul. And secondly, the government itself led the economic growth. Government officials had a lot of authority as in Singapore. Also, with the national risk of war due to the division of Korea, people listened and followed the government's direction. This enabled the government to make decisions and implement them fast and easy. And finally, the influence of Confucian family dynamics and a fervent zeal for education combined with existing Asian values made a unique capitalist system, namely Confucian capitalism. I believe Singapore also affected by the last two factors. However, there was a dark side to this apparent success. First of all, it brought an imbalance in the use of land throughout the country. Due to this high concentration, as you can see here, the vitality and the productivity of rural area has significantly declined. The income gap between rural and urban area has been continuously increasing, and rapidly decreasing economic power and aging in the rural population is causing severe political issues. Secondly, we are overly dependent on the construction industry and the real estate market. This is causing housing prices to continuously grow higher. Today, Korea's construction industry makes up a large share of GDP and one of the highest in the world, as you can see here. And the house price to income ratio is also among the highest in the world, which is becoming an obstacle in sustainable urban development. And in East Asian countries, strong family ties and support has played the role of welfare state, which has substituted the government welfare for many years. But as family ties weaken rapidly, in a state of low income, low welfare expenditure, diverse social programs are also rising. These two issues are intricate, I think. The older generation accumulated most of their assets just as a form of real estate without any meaningful public welfare system. Only 30% of the elder people receives national pension in Korea, As a result, we have recently ranked first in the OECD countries for having the highest rate of elderly poverty, even though the home ownership rate of the elderly exceeds 70%, and 80% of their assets are existing as a form of real property. So they only have the house, only house, without cash. And they believe their future will be supported by their children. But unfortunately, the family ties became quite rapidly weaker. That's the problem. Well, here I would like to explain the logic behind the shaping of modern Seoul. The first logic is growth-forward strategy. In the 1960s, to effectively use the scarce resources, the Korean government concentrated the investment on few sectors and regions, in the capital region. And the second is self-help housing logic. The government's growth strategy affected a rapid population shift to Seoul. However, they were not prepared to provide housing, let alone essential infrastructure. As a countermeasure to provide a temporary solution, the government embraced the self-help housing concept, which was widely implemented in other developing countries. As a result, the government decided to allow or overlook the formation of illegal housing areas for the consumption as a useful means of supplying affordable housing. It was also an effective means to control the urban poor, labeling them illegal. This picture shows a consumption area from 1960s to 1980s. In the 1960s, around 40% of Seoul residents lived in Panjacheon area. And this ratio decreased to 20% in 1970s. And in the early 1980s, around 10% still resided in Panjacheon. Of course, now these areas are all extinct. And the first picture shows the Cheonggyecheon at that time. Now you can enjoy the restored stream, but it was the picture of that time. Of course, Singapore has dismantled the SWAT communities successfully from the early stage of economic development and absorbed its residents in public housing. Providing public housing was one of the most important growth strategies with CPF in Singapore. However, Seoul wasn't able to restrict the rapid influx of rural population. The investment in housing was one of the lowest priorities until the 1970s. As explained once above, the redevelopment and demolition of Panjacheon started in the 1980s, when the housing market started to fully grow. The third is regarding real property boom and middle class formation. A steady rise in housing price expedited the apartment purchase boom, and real estate speculation became rampant. Price increase in real estate came hand in hand with the growth of middle class. The baby boom generation, now in their 50s and 60s, benefited from the growing economy and rose as a middle class through buying apartments. Here, there's a map of apartment. Actually, 85 square meter apartment is a kind of symbol of a middle class in Seoul. But now, this old generation has to worry about the middle price dropping, while the younger generation can no longer afford them. This is one of the current factors stagnating the sustainable growth. And where the fourth logic is something related to radical urban movement. Of course, urban revolution may be unfamiliar word, especially to the Singaporean. But in the 1980s, Korea dreamed of that for a while. At that time, the democracy movement became fiercer and the labor movement grew. This cover of the Time magazine represents the situation of Seoul at that time very well. And the urban poor had to fight against the demolition of Panjacheon and the Fourth Division. Seoul was the center of all these social movements. And as I entered the college in the year 1980, I was also greatly affected by this atmosphere. Majoring in urban engineering, the Western urban planning theories we learned in college didn't interest me at all at that time. Instead, I read radical books of urban issues such as Henri Lefebvre, Manuel Castells, and David Harris. In particular, Saul D. Alinsky, who has organized the Afro-American movement in Chicago, was our invisible lead. I translated his book myself and went into the Panjacheon area to organize a movement to stand up against the government. In a way, this was my time when I dreamed of city revolution. Especially at the time I was quite young. It was quite natural for my age anyway. Actually, from the 1980s to late 1990s, for about 15 years, I participated in the social movement to protect the right of urban poor. You could say I was a kind of professional activist during that time. It was also when I met current Mayor Park. He was also an important leader of the civic movement. However, the dream of city revolution weakened and died out eventually, as the people's dream to become a middle class surpassed the dream of city revolution. Anyway, we lost to the middle class. And I myself enjoyed the middle class. Because I also bought 85 square feet apartment and became middle class. But the dream to be more idealistic city was sustained in the form of an urban community movement and an alternative economy movement. In a way, it had affected the current mayor's policy direction, I think. Recently, a new logic of economic potentials also emerged. After the Asian financial crisis in 1997, government-led economic strategy came to a fundamental limit. So entering the 2000s, Seoul endeavored to find a new development model at the stage of low economic growth. The Seoul government selected a creative economy as a new growth engine of Seoul, which was based on the abundant talented workers and the coexistence of traditional and modern culture, and sustaining urban manufacture function. Finally, the sixth logic is focused on people itself. Entering the 2010s, the public need and expectation to expand the budget for welfare was great than the need for development, I mean the construction development. A new paradigm of human instead of concrete appeared against the policies that focused on constant development. Also, an emphasis was placed on small-scale development and renewability rather than large-scale development. Citizens' participation and community-based development were introduced as a new vehicle for development. Actually, last week, our institute hosted an international conference on Progress City or Human City, in which several distinguished Singaporean scholars, including Professor Ho, were joined. Well, from now on, I will explain the challenges Seoul encountered. Rapid population growth, successful economic growth, constant development, and high housing price. These are all common features of East Asian metropolises. With these common features in mind, what do you think are the challenges facing in the East Asian metropolis today? I think there are four large phenomena that are challenging the East Asian metropolis now. Contrary to the past trend, we encounter low growth rate, and new social conflict, and low development demand. So the past high, but the present low is some comparison. So the challenge in the era of low growth and aging and the low development demand will naturally be different from the era of rapid economic growth, population growth, and high expectation for development. I'm afraid I might have oversimplified this trend, but many successful cities in Asia are already more or less experiencing this situation. Of course, Seoul is one of the most typical cities. So, Seoul has three imminent challenges to resolve. First, we need a new kind of urban political mechanism that could ease the citizens' impatience and anxiety. In the past, governments could easily satisfy the citizens by a dramatic upgrade in urban quality of life, providing new roads, parking lots, parks, and playgrounds with minimum government expense, just by using large-scale urban development methods. It is somewhat automatic and market-led improvement process with regard to economic growth. So citizens are still expecting swift changes and improvements which no longer occur in the same way. In particular, the old generation, who benefited the rapid economic growth, are still expecting that kind of rapid changes in their quality of life. And actually, they are urging the city government to keep the housing price as high as now, or even they urge the government to increase the value of the property. I think this kind of political attitude, distort the government's policy. And actually, that kind of policy is something exploiting the opportunities of the next generation, I mean the younger generation. I think so in the urban policy area, there is a serious generational conflict. So in which side the government is really important issue in Korea. Therefore, we need new and creative, smart urban management strategies based on more public engagement and more citizens participation, not only property price increase. So I think it's the essential changes in this new year. So this is what I want to emphasize in this presentation. Secondly, Seoul needs to boost up urban vitality. Now the population of Seoul is decreasing as citizens in their 30s to 50s are moving outside of Seoul, mostly to Gyeonggi area surrounding Seoul because of high housing prices, whereas the population of elderly and unstable youth is increasing. As a result, in many areas, there are symptoms of decline. According to Seoul State Analysis, around 1/4 of Seoul is or will be experiencing urban decline. So, too much development is a problem, but an appropriate level of development or redevelopment is needed to avoid regional decline. So this is quite contradictory, task for the city government. Finally, a low degree of citizens' involvement and participation should be considered. As an Asian country, of course, Korea has a long tradition of having neighborhood communities. But due to rapid urbanization and even frequent movement within the city, the sense of community is, lower than the Western countries. Well, you may be surprised because in this visit, many Singaporean experts asked me how Seoul could develop the citizen participation. But for us, we have to admit that the sense of community is not so high. But we have another sense. I mean, the sense of equality is very high in Seoul. And the sense of political engagement is also high. I think there's a kind of Korean style participation, and I will explain later. Now my presentation is approaching its end. It's time to explain about Seoul's policy. But before that, I'd like to touch on the issue of the mayor's task. Mayors in Seoul are elected every 4 years. But before 1995, the president appointed the mayors and they stayed in office usually for an average of 2 or 3 years. I believe all mayors are designated with the task of their year. I think those mayors who focused on these tasks were successful, while those who didn't failed. To understand the task of this time, I'd like to go back and show you the task given to each mayor since 1960. As I mentioned to you, Seoul's 1960s was an era of urban crisis. The city was overcrowded, but people had no homes. Roads were not sufficient. How could the city handle a 10% annual population increase? So the task of mayors in this year was to find the fastest solutions to supply basic infrastructure to the rapidly growing population. Urban policies were focused in massive construction projects and land adjustment, road constructions, and industrial park developments. And it may sound strange, but I think this guy was one of the best mayors of the city. His nickname was the Bulldozer Mayor because he focused on demolition and rebuilding. He evicted a massive numbers of squat residents and attempted to relocate them to outer areas. Maybe around 20 to 30% of all Seoul population has relocated involuntarily by him. Even he tried to build a new city that can accommodate 10% of Seoul's population, just to gather up the urban poor. Only urban poor city he designed. This is the scenery of 10 years later when it formed. And actually, he executed his plan, and around 3% of all population moved to that area. It's about 20 kilometers from the city center at that time. But it was stopped by a riot at the time. So, all these actions may seem harsh, and some might think they were human rights abuses, but they had the intention of securing more space to accommodate the influx of new labor forces. At the same time, it enabled the development of inner city space as well. In that sense, I respect him because he fully understood the given task of that year and tried his best to find and implement solutions for them. In the 1970s, the task of Seoul mayors were focused on ensuring urban infrastructure to support economic growth. Road construction was at its peak, and major arteries of Seoul were built during this year. Also, subways, bridges, and overpasses were constructed, and massive amounts of land for apartments construction was ensured. And the task of 1980s were to make Seoul an international level city worthy of hosting major international games. Full-scale redevelopment of Pandacheon was enforced, and the plans to improve the street environment in their peak. At the same time, the economic growth started to trickle down and affect the livelihood of the citizens. In the 1990s, the city reached international city status by appearance. But there were limits to solving problems with expedient measures. Here you can see two photos. One is the photo of bridge collapse. It's one of the main bridges on Hanmi in 1994. And the luxurious apartment also collapsed in 1995. These two incidents did not happen accidentally, I believe, but rather the result of much too hasty development and a weak foundation. So the task of mayors in 1990s was to change the ad hoc city, or emergency city, to a normal city. To do that, mayors focused on reconstructing the urban infrastructure again, and at the same time, expanding parks, planting street trees, and overall improving citizens' quality of life. In the year 2000s, I think, Seoul wanted to be more than just a normal city. It wanted to be a city which created new values. Mayors in this era attempted to experiment with new ideas in the city to upgrade its potential and urban quality. For example, Cheonggyecheon overpass was demolished and restored to the street. The overpass was built by the bulldozer mayor as a symbol of modernization at that time. An innovative public transportation system was also introduced. But the transformation was also driven by its developmental method. Even the mayor planned to redevelop 10% of Seoul housing in just 4 years. Although the direction was right, its development-oriented methods caused many conflicts and liabilities to the society. Therefore, we refer to that era as neo-developmentalism. Now is the era of the present Mayor Park. I was the head of consultant of Mayor Park when he took the office in 2011. The biggest challenge for me was to discover what the test of that era was. At the time when Mayor Park was elected, there was a serious aftermath of library-reliant investment in development. Plans to build 5 skyscrapers over 100 stories were suspended by the financial crisis. And serious social conflict from evicted residents erupted. As you can see here, it is happened in the city center, just near city center. The evictees are protesting, and on the course of the police invasion, 5 people killed by the accidental fire. It happened in 2009. And in the central district, mostly the symbolic spaces were taken care of. I think the Cheonggyecheon itself is something symbolic development. But the living environment is still neglected. And this kind of purpose or debate is something root in politics. prevailed. So it was something the peak of the neo-developmentalism. So the current Mayor Park took his office just after all these things happened. So the challenges of Mayor Park were firstly to fix the side effects of developmentalism with citizens' participation or citizens' agreement. The secondly, to expand welfare and improve citizens' quality of life. Thirdly, recover Seoul's vitality without depending heavily on large construction development projects. And this diagram shows the three pillars of Mayor Park's administration: innovation and communication and governance. With the three key words, the present Mayor Park's main policies can be classified as the following 5 categories. The first is a new way of urban regeneration, which is different to the old style of all clearance and building highlights. Today, there are 27 areas designated as Seoul-style urban regeneration experiment area, which consists of 4 types of areas. And at the same time, he already cancelled 1/3 of the old-style redevelopment project. He already cancelled. And as I mentioned, just 1/3 is on board. And another 1/3 is just waiting what's happening. The second can be called 10 minutes neighborhood. Actually, the name I made. But someone, actually it's already in the textbook because it's some concept of neighborhood. In the past, social and cultural facilities were built large scale, usually as a landmark. Now, we plan to increase citizens' accessibility and the convenience for actually using these facilities in everyday lives by locating important facilities such as library, parks, theaters, and sports facilities within just a 10 minutes walking distance. The third is customize the welfare service with the Seoul welfare standards. In order to do that, we are planning to make the number of welfare officers twice than before in just 3 years. And we already made much enhanced welfare standard, different to the national minimum. The fourth is regarding economic strategy. We laid out 35 specific strategies to realize Seoul-style economic model. And the final area is innovation driven by the citizens. Mayor Park wanted to be called as a social designer or a social innovator before becoming the mayor. So he always emphasizes the citizens' innovative potentials and urges us to listen to them on the ground. Recently, Seoul made Seoul Innovation Park, which aiming at accommodating more than 1,000 groups with innovative ideas, and also made youth jobs. Well, it's almost a final stage. Yeah. The sentence from this book caught my eye. That 100 years shows how Singapore built and prepared. In fact, city planners always think of long-term goals. However, in reality, we are inevitably swamped to solve short-term problems, particularly in cities that have rapid change like Seoul. Long-term planning was considered a luxury. Even the term of each mayor is just 4 years. But Seoul has finally come to declare a 100-year plan in its official documents. 2030 Seoul Plan that was released in 2013 includes such things, and the Seoul Urban Planning Charter made by citizens also includes these. However, there is a concern that it's too late in Seoul, because Seoul is already destroyed by the old way of development. What can we do? Some relax. But I'm sure, and we are hopeful, because Seoul has dynamism. This dynamism is that we can achieve long-term plan in the short term. So I hear long-termism and short-termism. I compare. I think this could be the Seoul's something originality. I hope. So, as a final comment, I'd like to summarize the story of Seoul's experience in a basic textbook style expression. First of all, a city is alive. It's like a living organism. And a city is alive because people is living there. And thirdly, people are the owners of the city, not simply customers, as is seen in capitalist society. They are the ones who made the curve. As long as people live, the city will evolve towards a more humanitarian and community-oriented goal. However, failures or trial and errors are inevitable during this process. Seoul's history is made up of experiences that have accumulated through these failures. Finally, the failures of Seoul have been the most precious experience for the city, driving Seoul's competitiveness. This could bring hope to many countries who want to follow the footsteps of Seoul. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. I would now like to invite Dr. Cho to join Dr. Kim on stage for the moderated Q&A. Ladies and gentlemen, during the question and answer session, we ask that you state your name and organization before asking questions or making comments. You may raise your hand and our staff will walk to you with microphones. I will now hand the time over to Dr. Cho. May I invite Dr. Kim and Dr. Cho up on stage, please.
Thank you very much for the wonderful lecture. So much resonated with me because I've been born and raised in Seoul and have experienced the evolution of the city directly myself. But I'm sure also many of you in the audience could find something that resonates with you because there are so many similarities despite the differences, especially the challenges that the two cities are facing today and in the future. So I'm sure that there are so many comments and questions from the audience, but before we open to the floor, I would like to take this privilege of being a moderator to ask a set of questions first. So in recent years, it seems that there's an increased interest in Seoul amongst international scholars and policymakers. And as mentioned just last week, your institute organized this international symposium on making progressive cities, and international scholars gathered in Seoul to learn from Seoul experience and beyond. Progressive city here can be understood as what you have mentioned, people-centered city for human flourishing. And Brazil, São Paulo in Brazil and New York City are some of the cities that are taking the lead of this narrative of progressive cities and spreading in the world. So what is your view on this rather sudden increase in interest in Seoul? And why do you think that this interest on Seoul's role of playing this progressive city is relevant?
Actually, I'm still not believing why you are interested in actually, because I confessed myself, actually, so is just a symbol of trial and errors. In that sense, of course, I admit the interest, but we are far from successful, of course. But to be serious, yeah, actually, I think Seoul experienced, something the extremity of the development-oriented society, and many Koreans are still intoxicated by that kind of developmental achievement, and they are politically, they are the big group, and they are still, as I mentioned in my presentation, they are still urging the government to go and have the same trend. But inevitably, we enter the stage of low growth era, and we should accept, So, just after the financial crisis of the 2008, there were profound reflections on that kind of developmentalism in Seoul, I think. So, based on that reflections, anyway, we had to find another piece from the old developmentalism. I think that is the one reason. And the second reason is we have a long tradition of democratic movement, and that it's quite combative movement. And they are in their 40s or 50s, and they are still dreaming some kind of idealistic society. So they tried to make on their community. Maybe you may know the some village or other villages, and they want to make their own neighboring communities. So combining these two, I think, we can make some exemplary experiences. Of course, the Mayor Park was one of the trigger point, of course. But that's why some experts assert that there is a magic mayor, and somebody say that the Seoul Mayor Park is one of the magic mayors. But unfortunately, I do not agree with that, because where he has the potentials to be innovative. But in fact, everything his policy could possible was the society itself, and the citizens themselves summoned the mayor, I think.
as you rightfully said, the Measure Mayor still needs the support system and the citizens' awareness on that. Can you share with us what were the key mechanisms in place when this shift happened? So what were the key mechanisms that laid this foundation for this shift to happen in Seoul, also very recently? And what were the challenges when you tried to make the shift, and how did the city overcome or still trying to overcome it?
Well, still we are striving. So I'm not sure how we could achieve, but we are just striving the possible ways. But I think one thing I can say, so far, even though I belong to a bit old or the middle generation, but so far the policies in Seoul was decided or dominated by the older generation. I mean those who benefited from the rapid growth. But the younger generation was basically they are opted out. Nobody listened to the younger generation, I think. But they themselves have the innovative potentials. So I think the point of the mayor is to listen to the younger generation. I mean, the owner of the future society. I think that's quite important difference between the former mayors.
Thank you. So, may I open to the floor, and if you have any questions, please raise your hand. I think there's microphones around. Please identify yourself before raising the questions or any comments. Yes, Provost.
Dr. Kim, thank you for a very insightful talk. And I think what you mentioned in your talk is about people-centered policy from the city. And I think Singaporeans have to learn this lesson that perhaps in a people-centered policy orientation, the process of decision-making and participation is as important as the outcome. So that's what I think we can take away from you. But my question for you is a very Singaporean question. That is that urban planning must be effective. And in order to be effective, we must have the ability to intervene and to be shielded from politics. That's how we think. But at the same time, urban policy must be responsive. That's coming from you. So how does one balance the need to be shielded from politics and the many, many claims from different segments of society for change and for attention on the one hand, and still be effective?
Well, it's very Singaporean. Singaporean concerns, I'm afraid. Well, in Seoul, it's quite natural to be noisy and listen to loud voices to the every groups. We experience quite very combative democratic movement. So you asked that what's the influence of politician or political process to the planning. how I think about the political influence to the planning. I think it's every planning, even though it's special or in other area, is inevitably be political. Someone asserts that it's quite indifferent and objective. Where it may be designed by the elite groups and the professionals and really distinguished professional groups. But I don't think it's really reflect the desire of the citizen. I think participation means even any plan should be based on the citizens' intention or citizens' desire, even though the process is not so smooth, or the result could be crude. I think that's the difference. I mean, the professionalism versus something the politically, accumulated consensus is quite different. But in Seoul, even though the process is far from smooth, but anyway, we found some right way. We are on the process of finding right way, I think. So I'm afraid I can say I prefer the political system or the professional system, then I would prefer the first one.
Just to continue with this discussion about community participation, it is obvious that there is more emphasis on community participation in Seoul and also I think also in Singapore. We know that this movement of participation will build strong social capital, but also it requires strong social capacity to make it work and to make it sustain over long term. And we all know that to build this capacity it takes time. So what are the key strategies for Seoul to build this social capacity, to build civil group that becomes equal partners of city's development and not just mere followers of the city's need, for example? Can you share with us what are the strategies, what are the challenges met, and
it's becoming more difficult. Well, I'm afraid if we can strategically support any group, I mean the government or the public can support or lead the social capital. I'm afraid I don't think we can, I mean the public or the government can do it. Where some authoritative government think they can lead and even they can enlighten the citizens to a more desirable way. But in fact, government is just a follower. I think so. Unfortunately, the social capital cannot be raised by the government. So, unfortunately, to Mayor Pa, it cannot be designed by the government, and even he himself does not think like that.
However, there are intermediary bodies bodies like Seoul Community Support Center or lots of policy that support this kind of building up of social capacity and capital.
Well, I agree with you. Yeah. So that's why we made an intermediate organization, just to support, not lead, or not show the direction, just support the field groups.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for the very enlightening talk about Seoul. I'm John from URA. I think towards the later part of your slides, you mentioned about the urban regeneration experimental areas. And I thought you were just, the title of the talk today, you were talking about beyond development, dependent city. So I want to understand a bit better what is Seoul's approach, or city's approach in these experimental areas, in terms of identifying where are these places that you want to experiment, and how do you identify what is the end outcome that you want in each of these areas? What is the relationship between the city, government, together with the private sector of the communities in shaping the outcome itself?
Well, as I explained, for long years, Seoul had only one method of redevelopment: all clearance and new highlights. That's the only effective way, and it's really cost effective. And in that method, government didn't have do many things, just allow, just give permission, and then everything goes smooth. Despite there are some evictions or some struggles, but didn't care. The government didn't care, basically. But there's two changes. One is the low growth area. The second is the citizen no longer allow that kind of conflict between developers and citizens or the residents. So because of that, from now on, the government should intervene between the conflict, or should intervene to build the infrastructure, to change the derelict area. So it's quite different, it's fundamentally different to the old style. But unfortunately, the government didn't get enough money, enough budget for new type of redevelopment. So the government is trying to experiment which kind, or which way, or with whom. I mean the owners or the shopkeepers or the citizens, who is the reliable partner. So we are trying to find new ways of regeneration. So even though we designated about 27 area for the new types of regeneration, it's still on the stage of just planning. Maybe it will take at least 2 or 3 years for the implementation, I think. But some argues why it is so slow. And the Mayor Park is someone antagonistic to development. So he hindered to proceed that kind of redevelopment process. But you know, new types of regeneration should have more time. I think the old type of regeneration, for the old type of regeneration, the time was the crucial point. Because in just the profit depends on how we can finish the project. Was the issue. So in the process, the government intervention was something hindering the project. But now, the intervention and engagement and building the citizens' participation, I mean the process itself should be different. So we are waiting the process with patience, I think.
Hi, my name is Mihyun. I work at PUB. 한국어로는 싱가포르 수정공사제라고 있고요. Sorry, I was Korean. So I actually have a couple of questions, but before that, thank you for the insightful presentation. So first off, what is Seoul's role in developing other cities, since you mentioned that Seoul is already quite developed? So there are a lot of people who are actually coming to Seoul and they don't want to leave because other cities are not as developed. And since Seoul is like the capital city, I think it is like important for Seoul to lead the development of other cities as well. So if there is any plan that Seoul has in developing other cities, can you share with us? Or does that make sense?
Well, Seoul is something country, for the imbalance of the whole country. So Seoul benefited, I think, the most of the country's development. So Seoul has some kind of a sense of debt to the rural cities. So that's why we made a special project to support the rural cities in innovation or cooperation with Seoul. That is one. And the second would be, just 5 or 6 years ago, we started to build a new administrative capital in the middle of Korean Peninsula. And we decided to move all of public companies to rural cities. It's about 160. It's quite big companies too. So the government enforced something relocation of good function to the out areas. Of course, it's something revolutionary decision from the previous president. That means, the role of ruling as the source role of ruling is decreasing. Then what will our next role So Seoul shows the role of economic capital of the economy, instead of capital of administration. So I think that also has some implication to the other cities. And thirdly, we are trying to, functional collaboration with the cities in metropolitan areas. Every cities in metropolitan area are competing to get more better facilities. For example, for exhibition or MICE or something. So we should, divide our role and we should collaborate. For that, I think Seoul should do something for the other cities. I'm not sure it's an answer to your question.
Yeah, thank you. I actually have one more question, if you don't mind. So, I know that Mayor Park is really people-centric, which is good. But I think another aspect that is very important in urban design is environment. Like, for example, Singapore, as far as I know, Singapore has a lot of reservoirs, a lot of wetlands, a lot of forests, a lot of trees everywhere. But whenever I go to Seoul, the only thing I kind of see is like buildings and buildings and buildings. So, what is Mayor Park's plan regarding environmental issues in Seoul, especially in urban design?
Well, regarding environment, the built environment is quite difficult to change in a short period, of course. Unfortunately, Seoul is already covered by the high-rise buildings, even in the city center. As I explained in the presentation, Seoul has been the capital of Korean Peninsula for more than 600 years. One of the unique city in the world. But unfortunately, we destroyed most of the inner cities surrounding the emperor's palace. So now we decided, even though it's too late, but we decided to prohibit any kind of high-rise building, not any, but is seriously prohibit to build high-rise in inner cities. If you are to build high-rise, find another center, in the southern part of the Seoul area. So we at last realized that the ancient Seoul itself is the most attractive point for the foreigners. But it's a bit too late. But I'm still believing that anyway we can achieve more or less anyway. And regarding environment, except the built environment, but regarding the environment, the ecosystem or the energy, he has quite many innovative schemes. In next chance, I will explain.
Any more comment? Yes.
Hi, I'm Nigel from the
Can you
Tourism.
please use the microphone? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nigel from the Tourism Board. Thank you for your presentation. I just have one question. So I think how strongly does tourism feature as part of the consideration set as part of the urban planning and policy? So for example, I think we see areas like Gangnam Gangnam as well as Insadong exhibiting a very strong definitive characteristic. So were some of these precincts organically occurring, or were they really part of the urban planning measures? Thank you.
Well, now the tourism industry is one of the crucial in Seoul economy, of course. But unfortunately, we didn't design all this improvement or all this development. But I think the market itself has made the change. And after that, anyway, the government recognized the change and the potentials of tourism. So recently, the urban planning policy is quite pro-tourism system, of course. So there's changes, of course, but the start of the tourism itself was not by the government intention, but from the Korean unique cultural system. For example, the girl group or other K-pop or K-movies. After that, anyway, the government is following, and they insist government is leading. But actually, to be frank, the government is following.
Any more questions? Okay, if not, then I'll take the next question. I'm very interested in the social innovations that are happening recently after Mayor Park came to office. And of course, he wants to be called a social innovator, so it's understandable. And I want to just ask you about this very interesting initiative called Sharing the City program. It is much acclaimed by international media, for example, also Forbes has covered that the city is embracing the sharing economy and working in partnership with NGOs and private companies to have the sharing economy as one of the leading agenda of the city. So how did this start, and what is really happening on the ground? Because I read all these claims and all that, but it seems very challenging concept to actually be implemented.
Well, sharing economy is something popular in every country and in every city. Uber and Airbnb is quite popular. Somebody say it's just in the line of the kind of trend, but I think the Seoul's change, the sharing economy is different because, as I mentioned before, the Seoul's system was mainly for the property development that requires exclusive right, mostly occupied by the older generation. But the younger generation doesn't have their own resource. They cannot access to that property or the right to use that kind of facilities. For example, housing and the private cars is quite difficult. Car itself is not so expensive considering the Korean the income, but getting the parking lot is quite difficult because it is close linked to having housing itself. Those young generation cannot access to their own housing. For that, I think we need more innovative approach. One of that is, sharing house for young generation, or sharing car. Of course, the most customers are younger. Actually, the Dr. Ho, who came together, he is the expert in the sharing car sharing, not car sharing car. So I think that we have some kind of our own way of approach.
I think it's time to wrap up the session, although there are so many more to discuss and explore from each city. So I hope that this is just a starting point for closer partnership and collaboration in the years to come. And with that, thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for your wonderful contribution. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kim and Dr. Cho, for sharing your insights and experiences with us. We would like to invite Mr. Koo Yung Chai, Executive Director of CLC, to present our panelists with a token of appreciation to our speaker and moderator and for photo taking. Mr. Koo, please. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our lecture. We thank you for your participation. Do stay tuned for CLC Millers and website for more information on our upcoming events. We will also be seeking your feedback via email and would greatly appreciate if you could take time to help us improve the lecture series. Have a good evening and we hope to see you again.